Hello and welcome to the FinanceFeeds podcast series. Today, in episode number 5, I'm joined by Jean-Raphael Nahas, who is Head of Business Development at Blackwell Global in Cyprus. Hello, Jean.
Hi, good evening, Andrew.
Nice to speak to you. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not bad. How are you?
Very good, thanks. And certainly today we've got a really interesting subject. John is a very international businessman who actually, Blackwell Global is a very interesting company because it has a very international presence and a massive success in China and in Singapore, largely through a very well developed network over there, which is very interesting indeed. And the company has built on that over the last few years. So Jean actually has taken the company into some really interesting markets, and I think there's some good things you want to elaborate on and how to get into those particular markets.
Yeah, sure. The one option I would say which is quite interesting, and it's been actually a hot topic lately, is the Introducing Broker program. I'm sure many people are speaking about it nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely, they are indeed. It is really still very much on the agenda of most retail forex companies. The thing is, this is where you've got something really interesting happening, is that in a lot of companies they're focusing on markets that are well saturated to a large extent, whereas you've actually managed to found very large, good quality IB networks in areas which are pretty much uncharted territories by many brokers.
Yeah, that's correct. First thing is how there's a question really is how do you engage IBs and how do you create a large network? Majority of brokers expect their sales staff to close as many IBs as possible, which is nothing wrong with that. But let's ask the question: what is an IB? It's an individual really which introduces traders to a forex brokerage. And what he does is, in return, he receives a commission from the spread charge, and there's no extra pay.
Which is a very efficient way of doing business, because it means that you're getting the client base of that particular IB without having to have a very large sales or retention team or use a very expensive marketing budget on attracting customers.
Exactly, totally agree with you. So it's very important to make the IB feel that he is part of the organization. That's what drives his motivation. Yes. Paying rebates is a standard practice now for any brokers, and all brokers can offer this. So the key is, how can the broker support the IB?
Yes, indeed. And I think that is very critical in areas where the forex industry is not quite so populous. For example, and I think you probably agree here, that a growth area which is not being tapped into by many companies is actually South Africa.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, there's quite a few brokers out there at the moment. South Africa has become a popular destination for brokers looking to expand their presence in the African continent. And many brokers have established a presence and obtained the FSB license. Again, these are markets very much oriented around the education and the IB program itself.
Yes, they are indeed. That's right. Would you say that there's a lot of need for trading seminars and to actually get an audience into a room and present to them in South Africa?
Yes, definitely. I mean, in South Africa, from the research that we have done here at Blackwell Global, we've understood that there is a great demand when it comes to education. So what is very important is to work alongside with IBs, of course, and which most of the IBs in South Africa are mostly forex coaches or mentors or actually have some kind of forex academy.
Yes, indeed they do. That's right. And this is actually an interesting thing, because there is a large advantage to that, because they can actually be very good introducing brokers as well as money managers. But the retail user has to be able to be certain that those are not the type of places which sign up customers, novice traders, to warehouse brokerages and just split the losses between them. They have to be really bona fide organisations, and that's the difficulty in relatively unpopulous areas for the forex industry, I would say.
Yeah, of course. Now you've got major countries in Africa. So you've got countries like Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa. All these countries, they all focus on the IB partnership program and education.
Yes,
You know,
indeed.
I'll give you an example from my experience in Nigeria, which is actually right now is a fantastic opportunity, and there's great potential due to the devaluation of the naira.
Yes,
You know, Nigeria is an attractive destination for international brokers to set up. Many brokers have been there for some years now, and really the thing is taking this opportunity to set up and establish an office for very little money.
Yes, indeed, and the depreciation has worked in the favour of a lot of Western firms that want to establish a regional office. But in terms of doing business there, I would say that from the research I've done over the years, many people in Nigeria, retail traders in Nigeria, are very eager and very interested in becoming more of a retail trader or even developing their own IB network. But the barriers are very hard because getting money in and out of Nigeria is difficult. The merchant services providers often don't let credit card transactions go through from there. And also Liberty Reserve, the demise of Liberty Reserve made it hard to transfer peer-to-peer cash.
Definitely.
And as a result, it's becoming more of an entry barrier. So how can that be mitigated? And what do you still think there is a lot of opportunity to business there sensibly and actually gain a good quality access to clients, even though there are difficult barriers? And how can it be maximised that now there's a good opportunity in terms of cost of operating?
Yeah, definitely. There is great opportunities there. Great potentials. Now, the key is IBs. It's working alongside with an IB, and it's very important to understand what the IB wants and to listen to him.
Yes.
Okay, you have to understand that these IBs in Western Africa don't have much money to spend.
No.
So they very much rely on the brokers to support them. If they feel the support is there, they're more than happy to work.
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay, so the next thing what IBs would want from a broker is for a broker to kind of establish some kind of office, whether it could be a small office where clients could come in and discuss a one-on-one, or where IBs or the representatives could hold seminars.
Yes, indeed. And that can be relatively not inexpensive, I would imagine, compared to by Western terms. That can be quite inexpensive these days.
Well, nowadays you could set up an office it could cost about probably around $15,000.
Right.
That would include your yearly rent. And then you would have little things as, a kind of a TV, some desks, things like to accommodate the traders and students coming in for education.
I see. And is there a license needed to actually provide education or not?
There is no license needed now in Nigeria. There isn't.
Right, interesting. So you would suggest that any broker wishing to do that would set up an operation there and have a local bank account as well to avoid the issue of having to send money abroad?
It could be an option. It could be an option incorporating a company in Nigeria, yes. Which then they could open up a bank account and accept, of course, local currencies in the naira.
Yes.
So this is obviously a great benefit for traders. They don't need to worry about how do I get my money outside the country. They can just walk across the road, deposit, and that's it.
Yes, indeed. I see. So effectively, it would really be a question of operating locally. It's very much like many emerging markets, the local presence is vital. But I would imagine that despite the low cost and the potential client base, things are more likely to be more fruitful if you did it in South Africa.
Of course. I mean, South Africa is, could say, much more developed in that sense. They already, have the FSB license. Now, with South Africa, there's a lot of brokers, like I said before, that have already established a presence there, have obtained a license, and things are quite more on the serious side to things. However, the IB and education is still, there's still great demand in that area.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. And I think it's a bold step, actually, going into these markets. But, there's been a few companies there. ACM Gold, for example, South African company, they have got a large client base over there and also in other regions, but I don't think many other companies have actually managed to make much inroads into the actual entire continental Africa.
Not many, I would say. I think South Africa is right now the place where brokers are looking into. Again, you do have brokers in Nigeria, but I would say South Africa is definitely a market worth looking into.
Yes, indeed. And I think that's very interesting indeed. And certainly Blackwell is very, very well versed with actually working with IBs across the world. And certainly, you've been for the last 7 or 8 years. I think the first time I ever came into contact with this level of development in terms of IBs, as far as Blackwell is concerned, was about 7 years ago when I actually met and spoke to one of your very large IBs in China.
It must have been probably around in 2000, 2011, 2010.
Yes, 2010, something like that it was. Yes, indeed. And that's what really struck me is, your company had a very developed IB network even back then in regions where it's not necessarily that easy to do business.
Correct. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, in Asia, that's what they like. It's all about seminars, education, getting people together to kind of come in. They come in crowds and they really like the kind of action and the speeches and the presentations and all that kind of stuff.
That's absolutely right. And do you think that translates to the African continent as well?
It does. I think they work basically on the same model.
Yes.
Asia and Africa more or less they follow the same model in terms of IBs, in terms of education seminars, and I think that's why we've kind of achieved what we've achieved so far.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely agree with that. And I certainly think this is very valuable information. Thank you very much for sharing that with you. That's Jean-Raphael Nahas at Blackwell Global in Cyprus. Nice to speak to you as always, Jean.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you.
Great pleasure. See you soon. All the best.